all the time. Today, the 15th Sunday of Ordinary Time Liturgical Year C, the Lord is challenging us about our understanding of God's commandments and our way of keeping them. You can think you are keeping the commandments. You may actually be doing something that is the ordinary thing, the natural thing, that is not even because of Christianity. You know, the Christian demand is the extra mile, by the way. I've always said this to put the things in context. The person you love, who is that one in your mind? The person you love, and you say that I am keeping God's commandments. If you are just talking about your daughter, your son, that is your child. Loving that one is not yet God's commandments. It is a natural process. Even other animals love their children. You don't even have to be a human being to love your children. That is an inbuilt instinct. I've always said this. Loving your brother because this is the son of your mother and father is not a result of Christianity. It's not a result of keeping God's commandments. It is just a natural process. This is family member. We are being challenged about, who do you think you are really loving? Who is the neighbor that God is talking about? The first reading today is taken from the book of Deuteronomy. The name or the word Deuteronomy means second law. This book is called Second Law or Deuteronomy because in this book, Moses is talking about the law again. The law had been given in the book of Exodus, the second book of the Bible. Deuteronomy is the fifth book of the Bible. Now, Moses had been called to lead the people of Israel from Egypt to the promised land. He was 80 years at the time. When God called him, he started this mission of trying to get the people out. It was a difficult process, so many plagues, 10 plagues. Then eventually Pharaoh accepted, let these people go and leave our country. He led them through the Sinai Peninsula, got the commandments, the 10 commandments. But now, by the time this book of Deuteronomy is being spoken about, this is 40 years later. The Exodus started in 1440 BC. The event of the first reading is 1400 BC. The location of the law was Mount Sinai. The location of the second law, Deuteronomy here, which is the same law being repeated, is now Jordan, the country they call Jordan. The people of Israel did not leave Egypt via the shortcut because of the challenges of obstacles on the way. Kingdoms that were mighty and impossible to penetrate. So they walked moving round, and then they came towards the east. That is the country today they're calling Jordan. Then crossed from there. Now Moses reaching this place, this was 1400 BC. Moses was already 120 years old, according to the Bible. God told him, you are dying. You will not reach the promised land, but you can see it there. Somebody else will lead these people to reach there. Now Moses, knowing that he is finishing his mission in this country, Jordan, was worried about the young generation. The journey took too long. There were people who were kids, babies in their mother's arms, at the time when the Israelis were crossing the Red Sea. By the time they have reached Jordan, their dads, their parents, 40 years and above, but they didn't see the crossing of the Red Sea. Their parents talk about mighty things that God did, how the sea separated. They sound like fiction. And yet they are true stories. Moses was concerned about this generation. There were people who, because of their nature of age, did not know that people in the rest of the world are going to the garden to do farming in order to get food. Because for them they were born in the days when manna was falling. They were thinking that people just receive food from the skies. Because for them it was happening, you're receiving food from the skies. Every morning you come out with a basket, the food would have fallen already on the ground. You collect your food and then you go back to the house and then you prepare bread, You crush the manna into powder, some flour, and then you make your chapati or whatever. That's how manna was being eaten. Now this generation did not know that the rest of the world are working on farms in order to produce food. They are not in touch with reality. Moses was worried about them. Their understanding of God's laws, Moses was worried about that. And so Moses did a recap The book of Deuteronomy is about a recap, a revision of the same law. That's why it is called second law. But it is, or in other words, Deuteronomy. It is a revision of the same law that, the people need to understand properly. So he said, listen to this law properly and understand them. God's commandments are not very far from you. They are not in the heavens where you can say the excuse, who is going to collect it for us from heaven and bring it to us here so that we can keep it? They are not across the sea where you can say, who is going to cross the sea and bring the commandments of God so that we can keep it? God's commandments is on your lips. It is in your heart. Meaning, it is in what you say. It is in what you are thinking or your attitude. That is the commandments. Don't be looking for notes. Don't be looking for some tablet. Don't be looking for anything written anywhere. It is the daily lifestyle that constitutes the commandments. It is the daily talk. It is the daily attitude you display. That is the way of assessing yourself. In the second reading, St. Paul writes his letter to the Colossians and reminds them, look at the image of Christ if you want to know how to behave. Everything was created in him and through him. He is the perfect model for us to follow if you want to know the will of God. In the gospel, the Lord Jesus Christ was confronted by a lawyer in Jewish society. He was asking him this question in public, by the way. He stood up to ask the rabbi, Jesus himself. He said, Master, what must I do to inherit God's command? To inherit eternal life? Jesus answered him, what is written in the books of the law? That what is written is this: you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said, you have answered well. Do that and life is yours. But the guy felt that was not even touching what he was, confused about. Then he asked further question. But who is my neighbor? Now, the Jewish people had been taught a neighbor is a fellow Jew. You don't love strangers. They have no accommodation for strangers. That was the mindset and the way of bringing up that people in that society. So when this man asked, and who is my neighbor? Instead of Jesus saying, your neighbor is so and so, or whoever is this and that, he went by way of parable, so that we can make a more comprehensive interpretation that can guide us. The Lord he used to do parables so that you can think deeper about the situation of concern. So he said a parable about the Good Samaritan. The parable you're familiar with. But this parable is very rich and very important because it conveys exactly what God is asking us or challenging us about. When he said, who is my neighbor? Jesus said, by way of story, there was a man who was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And that is the true road that still exists. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho. The site of this parable here is a reality that used to happen. By winding roads, sudden corners, sudden twists. That is the nature of that road. Somebody could be in hiding behind the sand dunes, behind some small hill, some small kind of rise, some kind of stone. All of a sudden the person jumps on the road you have not seen, because the road is actually not a very straightforward road where you can see very far from a distance. So it was giving a real scenario that would catch this person's imagination. This person was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, on his way, he fell into the hands of the thieves. They beat him up, robbed his property, left him bleeding, looking half dead, actually dead. They thought he was dead, but he was alive, half dead. A priest was traveling the same road. He came to the scene of the incident. This is priest. He looked at this man looking like a dead body. The priest passed by on the other side, not even touching. A Levite. Levites are assistants to the priest, like the catechist in our own times here. Came to the scene as the second person who arrived there. He also did what his boss did. He looked at the man from a distance, passed by on the other side, did not touch. But the Samaritan was the third person to arrive at the scene. He was moved with compassion. He went, grabbed this guy here, dirtying himself with the blood and whatever, and doing his best of first aid with what was available, the first aid of the time. There was no iodine, no tincture. People used to use spirits. He used the strong wine here, poured on the wounds, used the palm oil to calm this, and then he bandaged, got this man, put him on his horse, and then traveled with him to the nearest accommodation, an hotel setting, not a hospital. Now, he tried his best, gave the support. He spent the night with this guy in his own hotel room. But he's on the journey. The following day, he spoke to the owners of the hotel. Look after this patient for me. Who is he to you? Relative? No. Do you know him? No. But you see this kind of thing. Now, this man is doing something extraordinary. Now, he comes and then he says, look after this patient for me. Here is 2 denarii, giving extra money. Use this money on the services of this guy. On my way back, I will cross via this place. If you have spent more than these 2 denarii, I will pay the extra balance that you have got. But look after him for me. And then proceeded. Then Jesus now says, of these 3 people, who proved himself a neighbor to the man who was beaten? And the lawyer now had an answer. It is the guy who showed compassion, who proved himself a neighbor. That was deeper than simply saying, a neighbor is so and so. You would not even see, you would not even understand it. It would be too shallow. So Jesus said, go and do the same yourself. Now what we're being challenged about, it's important to understand the context of this thing. The priest, why did the priest not touch this body? Wrong understanding of the commandments was the reason. You would wonder why the priest would not touch that body. The priest was taught in their days, because you're going for sacrifice, to offer sacrifice on the altar, you are not allowed to come in contact with corpses or blood. You don't touch blood, you don't touch a body. So, thinking that is keeping God's commandments, which is not true, thinking that is keeping God's commandments, you would rather die because I need to keep myself clean for the sacrifice. The Levite, who is the helper to the priest, was thinking in the same way. You are not allowed to touch blood. You are not allowed to touch a dead body. Just in case the guy is already dead. Let me also keep my distance and then go. What about the Samaritan? The background to the Samaritans is this. You know, the kingdom of Israel used to be one kingdom. I'm trying to give you the background to this point of the Samaritan. The kingdom of Israel used to be one single kingdom. The first king in Israel was anointed in 1050 BC by the prophet they call Samuel. That king, the king they called Saul, ruled for 40 years and died in 1010 BC. After being rejected by God, he died in a battle with the Amalekites, one of the desert tribes at the time. Then a second king was anointed, King David, who was considered the upright king. Until today, David is spoken of as a man of God and very close to God's heart. David ruled from 1010 BC and died in 970 BC. When he died, his son, he made a mistake in his life, for which he repented, of course. The mistake of taking the wife of one of his soldiers, Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. This woman, Bathsheba, became David's favorite wife after they were forgiven. He bore him a second son. The first one of the adultery was dead. That boy died in childhood because God did not allow that. But God forgave David and allowed this marriage to proceed. Now, that woman gave birth to another son, and that was Solomon. David, during his own lifetime, was a military general, a very real genius when it comes to military planning. And so he fought all battles, lost none until his death. Made Israel the largest in the history of those people. Israel, the state of Israel, has never been larger than the days of King David. Today is a small place, a very small place. They have lost too much territory. Now, David wrote in his will that he wanted to be succeeded by Solomon. The name Solomon is from this shalom here, peace. Solomon was a very peaceful king. He came with a new policy, a new approach to ruling. Unlike his father, who used to be a warmonger, Solomon did not want war with anybody. But those were the days when neighbors could be unpredictable. So how would you control and make sure your kingdom is peaceful? Remember that Solomon was blessed with wisdom, like no other king, the Bible says. And now, in this wisdom, which actually, by the way, later on backfired, that wisdom Solomon had, Solomon said now, to make sure that I don't have war with my neighbors, I will marry from their kingdoms. So Solomon started a policy. Solomon started a policy of marrying from neighboring kingdoms. He would marry your daughter if you are a mature king, an older king, so that you don't attack because your daughter is with us. I am your son-in-law. If you are a young king, you have succeeded your father, Solomon would marry your sister. So that now I am your Muko. We don't fight. We are Muko. I'm your Muko. So this policy of marriage from the neighboring kingdoms started making the accumulation of women go up. By the time Solomon was sorting himself out, he had 700 wives. 700 wives? Everybody was shocked. They have never heard of a man who had married 700 wives. So they said now, you king, you have done something very rare in history. This is the parliament talking, the Senate. Now, to make sure that nobody can match you in life, we round it off. What you have got. They brought another 300 wives, concubines now, and said now, with 1,000 net, you are looking different in history. You know that kind of thing. And so Solomon had 1,000 women. The problem with Solomon's marriage, Solomon did not want the wives gathered in one palace like school children. He said these are royalties. We don't treat them like that. Solomon was a proud guy. He wanted always these things to be very different from the rest of other people. So he ordered the building of palaces for each woman. Now that is too much project. Where is the money coming from? You want us to build 1,000 palaces? This is just too expensive. Everybody was complaining. It is Solomon who wants it. Get going with the job. And people started construction. Implication of that new policy is heavy taxes on everybody because the royal expense went up. In meals, Solomon would not sit at a table this size. He would, for lunch, put a table that goes beyond Nikan. Because it will be tables. So many people are invited. That is lunch yet. We have not spoken about supper. Now, so many cows have been slaughtered. People will sit beyond Nikan, all sitting for dining because you have been privileged to be invited to the meal to dine with Solomon. He did not want to put on ordinary clothes. His clothes must not be found on anybody else because it is low grade if it can be afforded by anybody. Very expensive things. He rejected ordinary houses. He wanted houses built with cedar wood. Cedar wood in this point in history was growing in current day Lebanon, Tyre and Sidon at the time. Now he would bring wood from Lebanon. And the craftsmen, the builders must be Lebanese, imported into Israel. They build the house for the king, and that is suitable now for royal standards. He would not eat from ordinary pottery, this crockery and so on. Things like, the utensils of the day. No, ivory. He wants ivory plates, ivory cups, ivory dining table, ivory bed. And there are no elephants in Israel. Go anywhere in the world, get the ivory because Solomon wants them. And people would come all the way to Africa looking for ivory. Very expensive king. I don't know whether you remember the comments Jesus made about this guy 1,000 years later. When he was talking about how God in his goodness clothes the flowers. He said, you look at the flowers of the garden. They are so beautifully dressed by God. Not even Solomon in all his regalia was as beautifully dressed as one of these flowers. You remember that statement? It was because of the level of Solomon's smartness. The level of smartness of Solomon was remembered for years, thousands of years. Nobody else reached that level. So when Solomon died in 930 BC, the country experienced a deep sense of relief because he was such an expensive king to look after. So the son of Solomon, a young man called Rehoboam, was supposed to take over the throne from 930 BC. Now, Rehoboam was approached by the elders, the people who were working in the palace of Solomon. The elders consulted this young man. Your late father left a will. You must be the next king. But, O king, listen to the cry of your people. Your father lived a very expensive life. It was too costly for the country. Everybody was suffering under the yoke of taxes. Please, tone down the quality of life. Don't live like your father. Live ordinarily like other kings in the world. Then Rehoboam, this young man, listened to the elders. He was not convinced. He went to consult his own colleagues, boys with whom they grew up. They used to play together, growing up. Young men of his own generation. The elders are saying that I must not live like my father because what. So the boys gave him a wrong advice. Don't listen to the elders. Put your foot down. Why would the elders tell you to do that? You are king. If you don't put your foot down, these people will run over you. They will make you look like you have got no power. Let everybody know you are king, the next king after your dad. So put your foot down, declare what you want. Don't listen to what these old people are saying. So now the day of coronation came. After the king was crowned, it was time for the king to address the nation. Now Rehoboam stood up to address the nation. A very unfortunate address. He said, during the days of my father, you enjoyed many privileges. My father ruled you with a wooden rod. Under Rehoboam, you will see an iron rod. When people say, what? Wooden rod was your father's yoke. Yours will be iron. People shouted, ooh, we are finished, we are finished. The confusion that developed in Jerusalem was extraordinary. Riots on the streets, people rebelling on the day of the coronation of the new king. There was an army general called Jeroboam. He took advantage of the situation, ran into the streets. Anybody who wants freedom, we create our own kingdom in the north. Follow me. And Israel has 12 tribes. 10 tribes drifted with Jeroboam to start a new kingdom in the north in 930 BC. 2 tribes only remained with Rehoboam in the south. That is the kingdom called the kingdom of Judah, a very small kingdom. The kingdom in the north with 10 tribes is called Israel or Samaria, where you're getting the word Samaritan from. Now, this kingdom of Judah in the south with 2 tribes is where Jesus comes from. The kingdom in the north now decided to get their political independence through these forceful means, but they got stuck. Now in the north, they had their so-called political independence, but they were stuck with religious matters. Israel had one national temple, which was in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is in the south. Every Jew, you remember the story in the Bible, every Jewish family would go to offer sacrifice in the temple, and when Jesus was offered, in the temple and the doves and so on, the story, that was done by every family. The way you would come to a national shrine, the way something like Namukongo, imagine it was like a national shrine. The crowds would be like that. Now Jesus, Jerusalem is in the south, very consecrated place, holy in the Jewish understanding. And what made Jerusalem unique is the Ark of the Covenant is in that temple. The same ark where, you remember Zechariah went incensing, behind, in the Holy of Holies, he came out speechless. That was the place. The Holy of Holies is the place where the Ark of the Covenant is laid to rest. The Ark of the Covenant is the wooden box in which the 10 commandments on the 2 tablet stones are put. They put it in the Ark of the Covenant, designed with wings of angels, angels facing one another on the lid and so on. Nobody is supposed to touch that. In fact, it is so holy that nobody is allowed to enter into that curtain. Even the priest can go only when they cast lots to prove who is supposed to be the one God has chosen that year. So when the lots fell to Zechariah, in his later days, he went. Now that Ark of the Covenant made Jerusalem a special temple. The people in the north were stuck. We have got the building, yes, but how do we consecrate it and make it unique? They got stuck there. The Ark of the Covenant makes Jerusalem unique, but we have only one copy. There is no other ark. So the politicians came with a solution, a wrong one, moreover. They said we shall create our own things and make new things to consecrate our shrine. They took the northern kingdom back to the worship of the golden calf. The story of Exodus, when people made the golden calf, when Moses had gone up to the mountain, they did that thing again. There were 2 national shrines in the north, one at Bethel, another one at Dan. And so they made also 2 golden calves to consecrate those 2 temples. Calves image of cows. That is not God. So the northern kingdom started derailing its citizens from following the true God. That was part of the problem already, 930 BC. They carried on. God started sending prophets. In the Bible here, when you read stories of the Bible, prophets like Amos, prophets like Elijah, these are prophets who worked in the northern kingdom. But prophets like Isaiah worked in the southern kingdom. Now, in this period, God was sending prophets to tell the people of the north, you are on a wrong track. Repent from that direction. And if you don't, your country will be destroyed. They ignored the prophets. Amos was sent very badly by Amaziah the priest at Bethel. Go and make your living down there. We are independent. We don't connect to you. So eventually, they were left on their own. God was angry. He decided to sacrifice that country by withdrawing his support. So the Assyrian Empire was a world superpower at the time. Assyria is what today they're calling Iraq. Assyria, which today we are calling Iraq, had its capital at Nineveh, the place where Prophet Jonah was sent to go and preach. Now, Assyria, very mega power, very difficult to defeat, attacked northern kingdom in 722 BC, flattened the kingdom completely, defeated them. The trouble was, instead of going back that we have defeated these guys, we imposed taxes on them to build our own country, they decided to stay. They invited their own people. They started living in the northern kingdom. Then over the years, they started marrying their children, marrying their wives, Then the intermarriage ignored the confusion of the insult. He looked at the need of the man, came across, lifted him. People are saying blood is defiling. For me, you call me dirty already. No problem. I am defiled already. We carry on defiling. He just carried this one and carried on messing up himself with the blood and stains and so on. But taking care of this guy, this is a very unique heart. Treating an enemy with love. And yet, this is the person who despises you. That is why the story of the Good Samaritan is a unique story. The Lord Jesus Christ is saying now, who proved himself a neighbor? You know the answer now. The person who went and helped, who is the neighbor. So the challenge today as a message for us is, who is your neighbor? Who are you helping? The neighbor is not a fellow Jew. In other words, the neighbor is not your brother or sister. If you send your clothes from the wardrobe there to your brother or sister in the village, you have done a natural responsibility of taking care of family. You don't begin celebrating that you're keeping God's commandments even. Because even if you are not a Christian, you would still send clothes to the village. If you are keeping your food for your children, should we praise you because you cook for them lunch? They are your children. Who else is supposed to cook for them? See whether you do invite the children of the neighbors to your meals. There now you're doing something extraordinary. If you're helping your own relatives, you are doing normal responsibility. It's not a result of Christianity. See whether you can also help a person you meet on the street. Those beggars are there. I was giving this example today in earlier masses. The beggars, we meet there. We give different types of excuses so that we don't help them. The traffic lights have stopped us. They have run to the window. Maybe you're in a taxi or you're in your private car. You will hear somebody, you want to give. Don't give them money. And this may be a Christian talking here. Don't give them money. These people use that money for drugs. Do you know that boy? Now you say he's using money for drugs. Do you do drugs together with him? Have you ever met him? Somebody may be genuinely needing money and you are here spoiling the heart of somebody who is generous. If you don't want to help, keep quiet. Let the person who wants to help. Because that is how we keep on giving excuses. And these excuses is taking us too far. If you ask yourself honestly, money spent on beggars, how much have you spent so far since you were born? You will be very surprised to realize that since you were born, you have not even reached 10,000 yet. And why you're not reaching 10,000 is because you look for coins when the opportunity presents itself. Because now there is no 50 shillings coin, we are defeated to give 50. Now they give 100. Because 50 is not available. In the days when 50 shillings coin was available, somebody, you would hear things doing, here. Somebody is looking for 50. What is wrong with you? What do they sell for 50? Now you give 100 shilling to a beggar on the road. What can he buy with 100 shilling? What can he buy with 200 shilling coin? Maybe that one can be used for going to the toilet. He is not here looking for money to go to the toilet. He He is looking for money for food to eat. So why are you giving toilet money? He's not going for calls. You can do that for somebody who maybe wants to go to a short call in some of those city latrines or whatever. So we are being reminded the quality of our charity is questionable. We are not doing what we're supposed to do. And the praises we can have, the good feeling we have about ourselves that we are kind people, whom we are thinking about relatives. That is not even anything to do with Christianity. Think outside the box. That is why the answer of today is clarifying it for us. The neighbor is anyone in need, not relative, not fellow Jew, not a brother, not village mate. Neighbor is anyone in need. If the anyone in need happens to be a relative, fine, carry on. But don't be justifying it because of just relative. Anyone in need. There are so many people in need. The neighbor is the person you are torturing in your workplace there. People suffer in workplaces, and the person torturing is a Christian. Why are you doing that? Why? That is the neighbor. The commandments is not beyond the sea, so that you can excuse yourself. The people we are supposed to help are not across the sea. They are here in the office where you're working. They are here in the neighborhood where you're staying. You get people living in the same area, not able to talk to each other. Problem, road. The other one wants to build his wall fence, the whole plot. Now, where do we pass? Then you begin compromise over 1 meter. These people can now talk, making us squeeze ourselves here. In fact, our accommodation, access to our houses, is failing us in Kampala because of greed. So you will find a lot of narrow streets. Narrow streets, everyone is not cooperating. Road meters, they don't want. Everybody wants wall fence up to the edge. Then we begin squeezing. Somebody is coming with a car. Now for you are supposed to reverse. Or maybe try looking for somebody's gate. What are we doing to ourselves? Greed. Now we can't enjoy the city because we are spoiling it ourselves. This kind of thing makes us fail to do charity. You don't want to part with anything, not a meter of land to allow public space, not a foot, of land to allow passage for people. We are struggling everywhere because of greed. Till when maybe somebody is being paid for it or whatever. I don't mind that, but they're kind of hard. You find us looking like responsible adults. We pay some children school fees, and kumbe, they are relatives. And yet, much as they are relatives, we're not even happy to pay their fees, to keep them in our homes. Somebody is living with you in your home, and you will find in the new heart you have got, Holy Communion you are receiving every week. But when it comes to treatment at home, there is a clear distinction between the looks of your children and the looks of people who stay with you. Catch yourself in it. Check yourself whether everybody looks the same. Whether visitors can fail to tell the distinction between your children and the ones who are living with you. If that distinction can be told, when these people are supposed to be eating the same food, it means there is difference in treatment. And that is coming from a Christian auntie, a Christian uncle. Time comes for going back to school. Then you call the boy who was imposed on you when his father died, or imposed on you when he went for the burial. He imposed on you because this father has refused to leave alcohol. Now you call this boy, Robert, come over here. Tomorrow you're going back to school. Robert, I'm talking to you. Tomorrow you're going back to school. I'm giving you this money. Let me hear anything. Is this how to give school fees? Then you begin to wonder why these children grow in our house and remember how much we tortured them. Tomorrow you are a retired officer. Nobody wants to come back because they have memories of torture. You refuse to let your own children wash plates or clothes. You gather these mature children. No, they are not your age mate. Don't be seeing their size. You carry on doing this cleaning. You gather your children to watch TV. Their own age mate is washing their clothes, is cleaning the house, is doing everything. For you, you are a protective mother because my children must not be tortured in this house. What are you doing in this house after all? And you're carrying on thinking you're justifying your behavior. God has eyes. Tomorrow, you will find that these children you have been torturing have understood how to survive. Yours have not. They have grown up in a very tough environment though, but they have understood how to cook. And now they're going to become independent adults who can create families. Your girls completing university do not know how to cook. They won't take away. Take away, you're going to get married with take away. You will see how far you will go in that marriage. This is happening to people's children, literally. This is all a result of a bad heart. God has a way of making these ends actually become lessons. The Lord is teaching us today. Watch the kind of heart with which you are treating people. Who is the neighbor? Any person in need is a neighbor. Help that person. Whether children's neighbor, whether the children in the neighborhood, allow them, have access. Sometimes we want to be seen like good people, when actually we are not doing very well. We are not generous. You buy fresh bread, you don't give that day. You carry on slices, small slices, controlling and giving only to your children. The children's neighbor, the children of the neighbor are playing here. They are not included in the package. Now when this bread begins getting moldy, you have seen some green things now beginning to appear in the lines. That is now when you begin to act like a generous woman in the neighborhood. Robert, come over here. Come over here for what? Now you're defeated. The bread is rotting. Now that is when you want it consumed all at once. This is again noticed by God. Other people may not notice. They can mistake you for a kind woman when the real thing is expiry date. So we are being challenged about the way we are doing Christianity. We are doing things back to front. A lot of gaps to polish. Learn to see these things. Analyze them properly in the context God wants. God wants us to know where there is need, that is where you go. Not other justification. Not blood connection, not what. Look at the need. They surround you in the office there. There are people being persecuted for nothing. They surround you where you're living. There are children suffering in the neighborhood. They surround you where you're doing business. There are people who are also being mistreated where you work. So this is the thing we should reverse. Make sure that your way of understanding God's commandments makes sense according to how God intended it. Love the person who needs you. Do things for the person who needs your help. Then you have done what the Good Samaritan did. Ignore all segregations. Ignore all insults. Sometimes you get, in fact, we have this problem ourselves in our own society. What tribal prejudices. I met somebody somewhere and made a comment, and that happened to be an institution of learning. Somebody said, you know, the Basoga are what? They continue cooking fish when even the eyes are open, because they are believing that when it is fully cooked, it will close its eyes. You know, that is now to show that it is dead. What are you trying to insinuate? Then you are insulting what? That the Basoga are what? They are dense. They can't see that this is not dead, or this is dead. Are you insulting the Basoga? That was a comment was being made like that in UMI, by the way, when they were joking anyway. They were joking. But that is how we have got prejudices about other people. Intertribal prejudices in this country here. You see, Muganda, these people are very, very, you know, they love money. Who does not love money? Is it only the Baganda? Is it only who? They, the Banyankuli, are like this and that. You get married to a Banyankuli, be careful. They are going to... What kind of talk is this? And we carry on with these prejudices. They enter the minds of our children. Tomorrow your children will act with selection, thinking that these are true stories. This is exactly what the Jews were doing between them and with the Samaritans. And Jesus crushed it off. Anybody in need is a neighbor. Pray that God gives you the correct heart to understand what we do in Christianity. What we're supposed to do. Love the people who need you. Help the people who need you. Tribes are not the issue. But, you know, country, race, skin color, not the issue. Love anybody in need. And then you find the people who are not Christians beating us in this game. We get donations from Bazungus, for example. Do they know even where that money is going? They are given reports, a lot of corruption in Uganda, a lot of corruption in this. They get annoyed. But tomorrow, another year, they give again. Are you people thinking straight? Then you get an opposition politician trying his best. Don't give money, don't give money. Even that, even hearing that, they still think about human suffering. They still want to help. This is the maturity we are talking about. You see beyond those weird limitations. Look at that kind of example. Are they prayerful people? No. In church is not very popular in Europe. Not many people go to church, but they know, they understand human needs. They still do these things of charity. Then for us who come to church all the time, taking Holy Communion, many times even in a day or whatever, many times in a week you're taking Holy Communion, you go back still with the mind that the child of your own brother, the daughter of so-and-so in the village must not live at the same level with your children. Where are you getting this from? We are not doing the Christian thing. Pray in this Mass that God gives you the grace to work on your gaps so that you can solve the problem that you know is your weakness. You may find yourself very good with prayers, but their words, they don't mean anything till when you can put them into action. Put it into action. Learn to love people. Be kind to your neighbors. Treat people well in the place of work. Be good to the other people with whom you're doing business. Be a nice person everywhere you interact with others. Help those who are in need. That is the neighbor. The Lord be with you.